All of us so wounded and exhausted that we could barely stand after the battle with the swamp monsters, and, in particular, the shambling Mount Generals. We immediately retreated to Alfrida's hostel, where we were met as heroes and given a free stay for as long as we wished. Taking full advantage of Alfrida's hospitality, we stayed for several days, healing ourselves up, regaining our spells and simply enjoying the downtime we had so rightly deserved. The next morning, we visited several shops to replace our supplies, improve our weapons and armor and prepare ourselves to soon depart. Recalling what Queen Delphana had told us just after she was resurrected by Lodis and their spirits entwined forever, we needed to stop by the Power Tower one more time to say our goodbyes and, hopefully, be rewarded for our valor. First, however, there was one last place I wanted to visit, a particular cave to the west of EAA. Crossing the river again and returning to the marshland, we headed due west, taking about a half hour to reach the cave where we had encountered the Black Dragon Mother several days earlier. Returning to the Dragon's Cave here, it didn't take long to recognize that the mighty Black Dragon, along with her 2 young twins we presumed, had left the cave, likely never to return. Who knew if we would ever see her again? Glancing across the small lake in front of us, we also noticed that the dragon's treasure hoard was gone as well. However, a small portion of that treasure had been moved and now rested just a few dozen yards to our right, an apparent reward and ours for the taking. Inspecting the treasure, it contained thousands of coins of every type: copper, silver, electrum, gold, and platinum, about a dozen gems and pieces of jewelry, a variety of magical potions and even a bag of holding, similar to the one we had found back at the Baron's mansion but now ours for the taking. Most importantly, a magical sword had been left for us as well. Redfern identified the weapon as a +2 longsword and we all concurred that it should go to Eswin, the warrior thrilled to accept the powerful blade. Later that afternoon, we returned to EAA, and after a quick stop at the jeweler and then the bank, we headed to the Power Tower to see Queen Delphana one last time. Reaching the southern entrance of the Power Tower, a variety of laborers and townswomen were already here attending to the damage caused by the swamp creatures, clearing away debris and ensuring that all would be well. I also noticed several guards inspecting each and every white rose growing alongside the tower, making sure none of them were hidden blood roses. A few more guards protecting the southern entrance to the tower snapped to attention as we approached, allowing us easy access to the palace room up the spiral stairway and beyond. Entering the palace chamber, the room was abuzz with activity, a variety of officials working directly with the Queen to coordinate all the repairs within the city. In between the people coming and going, I caught a glimpse or two of Delphana, the older woman still just as feminine but with a slightly lower voice, an apparent adaptation of the joining between Lodis and herself. As we waded into the chamber and approached the Queen, it didn't take much to recognize that many of the women here within the palace room were still uncomfortable with the presence of the men in my party. To their credit, however, Redfern, Sainairs and even Eswin downplayed their presence here, keeping their eyes mostly on Queen Delphana. "You're back," Queen Delphana noted, quite busy with other things but still wanting to talk to us. "First things first, your reward." "Nira?" From behind the throne, the captain of the guard Nira dragged a modest-sized chest to the front of my party, opening its lid to reveal an assortment of coins, jewels, and even a few magical items. Clearly Delphana wanted to reward us well for our defense of EAA, perhaps as much an apology as reward. "Thank you, Queen Delphana," I responded, speaking on behalf of the party. The Queen nodded and smiled as we quickly divided all the treasure here. "Not to sound ungrateful, but you should probably leave now," Delphana instructed with a soft smile. "Your men are no longer criminals, but they are, well, a distraction, something we don't need right now." Looking about, it was clear the Queen was correct. The men here were making most of the women within the chamber uncomfortable, especially Nira. Recognizing that we had pushed our luck here in Genland anyway, I nodded my head in agreement and motioned for my heroes to depart. "And what about the Emerald Crown and all the rebels?" Kartha inquired, worried for them. "Can you find a way to not execute them as well?" Noticing that Nira was paying attention to the conversation, she turned away in a huff, not happy about something. "They have already been exonerated, Mudan," Delphana replied. "All of us deserve a fresh start, even them." Feeling a wave of relief, I acknowledged the Queen and turned for the door, our adventures here in Genland complete. "Wait, one last thing," Delphana called out as we stepped away. "Lodis tells me that all of you are facing execution yourselves at the hands of the Inner Circle. He suggests taking a ship east to Chagaria and see what you can do there. Do there? Eswin asked, unsure of Delphana's suggestion. The queen paused a moment, conferring with the spirit of Lodi's now entwined within her. Quickly recalling Darius and his plot to assassinate the Circle representative Margaret earlier in the year, I recalled that Chagaria had all but declared war on the Circle, and that its mages consumed the poison of the Nemphrid to cast their spells, a process that turned them into evil, heartless villains. If our party could do something about Chagaria, then maybe the Circle would reconsider its punishment against us. Apparently possessing more to tell, Queen Delphana stepped over to us, Nira immediately joining her alongside my heroes. The Ultimates of Chagaria, a group of warlocks who want nothing more than to see the inner circle destroyed, run the country with an iron fist, Delphana continued. Lodi suggests that if you can somehow destroy the government or even just neutralize it, you will more than prove yourselves to the Circle and they would rescind your death sentence. And how, exactly, would we go about doing that? Redfern asked, intrigued yet skeptical. You can't hope to defeat the Ultimates, of course, Delphana continued, Lodi speaking to her from within. But you can cut or even destroy their supply of Nemphrid, which they use to sustain their magical power. The Nemphrid comes from all the Nemesis plants located throughout Chagaria, and all those plants come from the one plant. Destroy that, and you will bring the Ultimates to their knees. Yes, let's do that. Ariana called out, the young elf bitterly recalling her brother being fed to the Nemesis plant in the caves north of Tobin. The Circle would be in our debt, Redfern agreed, turning to me. We should try. Then gather your wits, buy what you need and make your way to the shipyard in the northwest corner of the city when you're ready, Delphana concluded, needing to get back to the business of repairing the damaged capital. I will make sure our finest ship is ready to take you across. The queen nodded one last time, then was nearly swarmed by a variety of officials, all of them needing her time to review, recommend, advise, and approve. Our time now here at an end as well, we departed through one of the grand entrances, en route for the city shipyard to the northwest. Stopping at the bank one last time to deposit most of the wealth that Queen Delphana had just given us, we then reached a gate that allowed passage into the shipyard beyond, several dozen vessels bobbing in the water capable of moving people and supplies vast distances across the seas surrounding Genland. Passing through the gate and following the small road toward the ships in the distance, we quickly encountered a tiny wooden shack with one open door and two small windows facing us, the ticket master within patiently waiting for us. Any idea how much a vessel to Chagaria costs? Ariana asked. Let's find out, Eswin replied, leading the way. Well met, heroes. The middle-aged elf from behind the counter stated, a character who appeared to have done a lot of traveling in her day as well. I am the ticket master, Darshi. Where are all of you heading? About to answer, Darshi grinned, looking each of us over as if we were royalty. Wait, you're the party who helped save EAA from all those swamp monsters, aren't you? I was told to expect you. We've already commissioned our best ship to take you directly to Chagaria, you're free to board whenever you wish. Continuing to treat all of us as the heroes we were, Darshi led my party to the docks beyond where several smaller craft gently bobbed in the water. The vessels here were smaller boats, designed for only a few passengers and not intended for the open sea. There was, however, a substantial sailing ship anchored off the shoreline here about 100 yards away, a breathtaking vessel that was grand and majestic. Complete with 3 large masts, dozens of full, white sails, 10 cannons on each side and plenty of cargo space, the ship appeared capable of transporting dozens of people at a time, and given how the hull and masts had all been painted white as well, I suspected it belonged to none other than Queen Delphana herself. Is that the Queen's ship? Ariana asked, quite impressed by the sight in front of us. That it is, Darshi replied with a smile. Behold, the White Rose. How original. Eswin whispered, his sarcasm, mostly kept in check. Climb into the large rowboat here and then you can board her, Darshi instructed, pointing to a modest-sized vessel near the end of the pier, large enough to accommodate our entire party. Climbing into the sturdy rowboat, my heroes found a seat, each of us grabbing an oar. Darshi stepped back to the rudder, addressing us moments later. Have all of you used a rowboat before? Several of us had not, but hey, how hard could it be? Well, my party may have mastered how to take down a few hellions, but clearly we had much to learn when it came to rowing a boat. Eventually we got the hang of it, but the experience was a bit embarrassing. Soon reaching the large sailing ship, we rowed our way to a rope ladder that extended over the starboard, right side of the vessel. We then needed to climb about 20 feet up to reach the deck. Darshi fastened the rowboat to the ship, then helped escort all of us up the ladder, herself the last to reach the deck above. The sight before us was absolutely mesmerizing. Not only was the intricate combination of wood, rope, and sail here impressive, but the way the dozen or so female sailors were going about their duties and integrating themselves within the ship made it feel almost like a single, complex organism, one that needed a great deal of tender loving care. This would be my first sea voyage and it promised to be exciting. My heroes now fully aboard, we watched as Darshi looked about, apparently trying to find someone. Moments passed, then the woman asked my party to follow. All of us headed for a door near the back of the impressive ship. We then entered a surprisingly large room at the end of the ship, the captain's quarters. Containing a variety of amenities befitting someone of high rank and importance, I looked around for a few moments as Darshi approached someone sitting in a chair behind a desk, her back to me. "Captain Alicia? Those heroes looking to raid Chegaria are here." A few moments passed in silence, as if the woman sitting there didn't hear Darshi. The woman then leaped to her feet and turned around, stepping away from her chair and desk to formally greet us. "You did well, driving away all those nasty swamp creatures," the captain began, eyeing each of us. "Queen Delpana speaks very highly of you, even you, men. I am Captain Alicia, welcome aboard the White Rose." Colorfully dressed, well-armed and surprisingly, well, older than I expected, my first impression was that this woman knew exactly what she was doing, and that she had the best chance of getting all of us safely to Chegaria. I also suspected that she knew Queen Delpana personally and I wondered what that relationship might be. "Now, let's get down to business," Captain Alicia stated matter-of-factly, approaching me as the party leader. "The waters encircling Chegaria are dangerous," the captain continued, concerned. "We do occasionally trade with the Ultimates, but they're very secretive, even xenophobic, and they'll just as soon kill you than trade with you if you're not careful. Your best bet is to avoid their port towns altogether and sneak into the country. What's your plan?" "Find a port town and act as merchants," I answered, unsure of the best approach to sneak into the country. "The closest port town would be Olatz, in the bay due west of Jep," Captain Alicia responded, considering my response. "We can get you close to the docks. The village will likely send a small rowboat to fetch all of you." "We appreciate everything you're doing for us, Captain," Cartha replied, genuinely thankful. "This port town of Olatz should be fine." Captain Alicia nodded, the matter apparently settled. "All of you are welcome to stay here in my chamber during the journey," Captain Alicia then instructed, turning for the only door out. "It will take about a day to get there. Is there anything more I can do for you?" Darshi asked Alicia, ready to depart as well. "I should get back." "You're free to leave," the captain returned, holding the door open. "And let the queen know that these heroes are in good hands." Darshi smiled and nodded, then escorted Captain Alicia out of the room, leaving my party behind. "I think we are in good hands," I commented moments later, recognizing our good fortune to not just be headed toward our next adventure but doing so in such security and style. "I think we can trust this Captain Alicia completely." My heroes agreed, each of them looking about for a place to sit down and rest. Again, our journey to Chegaria would take at least a day, and given that none of us were used to the open sea, it was best that we stay within the captain's quarters and relax. Nearly a day passed, my heroes continuing to heal themselves, repair their weapons and armor, and generally enjoy the downtime in their own way. As this was our first time in the open ocean, however, both Sainairs and Cartha were rendered seasick over the past 8 hours, each of them dealing with it as best they could. Eventually sensing that we had to be getting close to Chegaria, and getting a little antsy here in the captain's quarters as well, it was time to leave and see how close we really were. Asking my heroes to gather their belongings and follow, I then led them out of the comfortable chamber and back out onto the deck of the grand ship beyond. I was surprised to find the ship's deck bathed in near darkness, the full moon above the only source of light. Marching forward as best we could, we eventually found Captain Alicia at the ship's wheel, the older woman extremely wary in the darkness. "Good, you're here," the captain whispered, looking about. "I was just going to send for you, we're only a few hours away from Olatz to the southeast." "Why is everything so dark?" Sainairs asked with respect, his voice just a whisper as well. "These are dangerous, monster-infested waters. The Ultimates are always scrying about their shorelines as well. We dare not attract any attention. The female naval officer considered the situation a little more, then looked to me and whispered again. Well, sail a little closer in, but that's all the farther I can take you. You'll have to swim the rest of the way. That seems a little challenging, but we should be okay, I answered tentatively, not looking forward to such a hard and dangerous swim in the dark. The captain looked to me for a moment and nodded, expecting such a noble response. Alicia then reached into a deep pocket of her overcoat, retrieved a small scroll tube and handed it to me. Hey, race a scroll of water breathing, just in case. Once we lower you into the water, use the scroll and you will be able to breathe normally even underwater. Well played. Redfern whispered as I accepted the magical item and stowed it away, my entire party grateful for the gift. What do all of you know of Chagoria? Captain Alicia queried, taking interest in our quest. You're heading into certain danger, are you sure about this? Actually, it was Queen Delphana's idea, Redfern answered, keeping his voice down. Our goal is to find and destroy the one nemesis plant, that should bring the ultimates to their knees. That is quite ambitious. The captain returned, a little stunned. Most who journey to Chagoria never return, I sure hope you know what you're doing. Well, be as careful as possible, Kartha interjected, taking the words from my mouth. We're aware of the danger, but this will help clear our names as well as deal a blow to the wicked ultimates. You're headed into a giant wasp's nest, Alicia finally commented, not sure what to think. I hope you don't stir up trouble for the rest of us. The next hour or so passed by in silence, each of us keeping our thoughts to ourselves as the White Rose continued its trek toward the western shore of Chagoria, the small port village of Oolats now not too far away. This is about as far as I dare go, Captain Alicia finally whispered to me, our time aboard the White Rose nearing its end. Follow me. Leaving the ship's wheel to her second-in-command, Alicia led our party to the starboard side of the ship where we first boarded the vessel and lowered the rope ladder so we could climb down. She then pointed to a stack of small wooden barrels nearby. Each of you, grab a barrel. There are cloaks inside you can use to disguise yourselves once you reach shore. The barrels will also help keep you afloat as you swim your way to shore. Following the captain's advice, each of us grabbed one of the small barrels, about to use them as a sort of life preserver. Alicia then stepped alongside the rope ladder leading down to the calm water below, about to help us depart. Suddenly, a loud, deep, piercing shriek ripped the air, an extremely disturbing sound that must have been very close. All of us looked about with great concern, the noise sounded monstrous and I feared the worst. What was that? Ariana gasped. The monstrous shriek cut through the air again, this time even louder. Captain Alicia drew her sword, as did several of her crew. Without warning, a massive tentacle then flew in from the darkness, hundreds of feet long and wrapping itself around the central mast of the ship. Additional tentacles flew in, flailing about like giant whips and posing a terrible danger to all aboard. A kraken! Alicia shouted, horrified. We're under attack. While never having faced such a monstrosity before, I had heard that they were massive, larger than the biggest whale in the ocean, and that their tentacles could crush entire ships. They also possessed a beak-like mouth that could snap a person in two. My initial thought was that the White Rose, and all aboard, were likely doomed. All of you, in the water, now! Captain Alicia barked, ordering you to abandon the ship at once. Assessing the suddenly desperate situation, I continued to watch as several more tentacles flew in out of the darkness, latching onto the other two masts and starting to crush them. Alicia ordered us to climb over the railings of the ship again and flee the encounter, then turn to attack the tentacles and, in all likelihood, be crushed by them very soon. This situation was incredibly perilous. What to do? Believing that the White Rose would be destroyed without our help, I bravely ordered the party to remain aboard ship and ready our weapons and spells, as this would be one of the toughest battles we had ever fought. Electing to attack the Kraken, an incredibly brave, but likely foolhardy decision, we were taking on a beast that was nearly 75 feet long, had 10 tentacles that could easily crush any one of us and a maw that could bite any of us in half. Fortunately, we did have two advantages. First, we had encountered a juvenile Kraken, which was significantly smaller than the real thing and hence something we could just be able to defeat. Second, we had Captain Alicia and her dozen shipmates as seasoned allies, so we wouldn't be battling the juvenile Kraken alone. At the moment, half a dozen Kraken tentacles flailed about, each several feet in diameter and covered in countless rows of powerful suckers. Before we could even lure the head of the Kraken out to try and defeat the monster, we had to first deal with its tentacles. The individual tentacles of the juvenile kraken reached nearly 250 feet and could crush the entire ship if we let it. Hence, we threw all our weapons and spells at all the tentacles that flailed about, Captain Alicia and her crew doing likewise. After hacking apart 2 of the tentacles, the remaining tentacles let go of the ship and began attacking us directly. While no one in my party was directly grabbed, 2 of Alicia's crew were soon wrapped up in the monster's tentacles and immediately crushed to death, their bodies thrown about as if mere rag dolls. Fighting even harder, we soon managed to destroy the remaining 3 tentacles, the juvenile kraken screaming in tremendous pain and now moderately wounded. The monstrous head of the kraken then revealed itself, the beast intensely angry as it continued its savage attack. The ship nearly crushed and beginning to break into pieces, Captain Alicia and her remaining crew members focused on saving the ship as we continued the battle against the kraken, fighting 2 more tentacles as well as its deadly beak. Dodging the tentacles as best we could, my heroes concentrated their firepower on the head of the monster, believing that if we dealt it enough damage, the kraken would retreat, and it worked. Striking the head again and again with our magic as well as weapons, the juvenile kraken screamed again and then let go of the ship, quickly fading into the darkness. The White Rose had been saved. Moments later, our party rejoined Captain Alicia near the heavily damaged central mast, torn ropes and shredded sails lying all about. We had chased the kraken away, but the White Rose was barely seaworthy now and would need to limp back to EAA. All of you are every bit the heroes Queen Delphana said you were, Alicia finally muttered, herself wounded. I am not sure if the White Rose will ever be the same again, but you are the only reason we're not lying at the bottom of the sea right now. You have my sincerest gratitude. Several of the surviving sailors saluted us as well, very much in agreement. Now, you must leave. The captain insisted, herding us to the starboard bow again so we could climb down to the water. I don't want to see you drown after risking your lives to save us. Agreeing, we stepped around the debris lying about the deck of the wounded ship, grabbed those barrels and climbed the rope ladder down, sliding into the cold water. Good luck. Captain Alicia then called out from above. Give the ultimates hell. A minute later, the ship disappeared into the near darkness and was gone. Now where? Redfern asked, looking about in the rich moonlight. Which direction? Follow me. Ariana returned, her elven eyes able to spot the faint flickers of light from the port town to the southeast. We need to reach the shore before daylight, Kartha added, a sense of urgency in her voice. Let's hurry. And with that, we used the scroll of water breathing and began the slow swim toward shore, still several miles away. Naturally, the swim itself was grueling, even with the wooden barrels and the scroll of water breathing that Captain Alicia had given us. Our muscles soon tired and it became a struggle to stay afloat, especially for those of us wearing armor. As the eastern sky began to brighten with the approaching sun, we finally came to within reach of the port town of Oolats, the docks and adjacent shoreline the best place for us to swim to. And that's a wrap of episode number 35, Assault on Chagaria. Expect additional episodes every few weeks as the story continues.